Hello, everybody. I'm going to be doing a quick intro for the next book. The next book that I'm going to do read alouds for. In the previous videos, I did My Year in the Middle, My Love, My Life, YA book. But as promised, I'm going to move on, and I'm actually going to be working with this book with my practicum and such. So I have a very unique copy of the Diary of Anne Frank. It is the play by Frances Goodrich and Albert Hackett. So it's pretty cool. It has some supplemental text in the back here, some of which are related readings, I should say, uh, which include from Frank, the Diary of a Young Girl, passages from her diary, um, Anne Frank Remembered, Eulogy for Anne Frank, A Young Gypsy's Fight for Survival, The Bracelet, Rescue, the story of how Gentile saved Jews in the Holocaust, and I think that's it. One of these stories was particular interest to me. Um, the Friendship or Personal Narrative by Yoshiko Uchida. So that one, and then there was another one which was it was pretty intense. It's by Meep or Miep. I really have never read this book before, so it's new for me. Um, with Alice and Leslie Gold, and they're friends. And Miep is Dutch, and I'm first generation Dutch, so this book is particularly kind of, it's close to home, right? Um, it's the inhabitants of the secret annex could never have managed without the courageous help of their Dutch friends. In this passage, Miep tells how she was able to rescue Anne's diary and how she found out the fate of her friends. So it's a very interesting perspective because obviously Diary of Anne Frank is told from Anne herself. Um, and I like that they made this adaptation into a play, and I'll tell you why. As somebody who's done theater, it was when I got this and I saw, oh, it was a play, I was like, oh, good. I immediately had that feeling of this is going to be a way for students to access this, tough subjects, as I like to call them, in a way that kind of gives it that added distance thing. Like when we talk about science fiction, for example, it is a good way to represent a reflection of what's going on in your society at a distance so people can evaluate it because there's the mystical elements, right? And it kind of is a way to depersonalize it. And plays have an interesting way of making stories come alive and make you pay attention to different things. For example, um, particularly in this section right here that I was going to read, I might not in this introduction, the length, but um, a lot of scripts, I should say, they have the dialogue of all the characters, and it'll be in bold which character is talking, and then in parentheses, it's going to be actions that fill in the scene or what's expected to happen within one scene, right? Because you hear act one, act two, act three. Well, in each act, there's a certain number of scenes. And so in parentheses, you're going to have a character's narrated action. Like he goes outside and he checks, he turns around. And these would basically be directions for actors on stage. And so it's a very interesting narrative of a live movie, if you will. Um, it makes it more personal, but in a way that it makes the audience feel like you can depersonalize yourself from it. It's a show. It's not, it's not quite in as in your face as as I might say so bluntly. You connect more with the actors, right? So this section, I'll just read it. Let's just go crazy. This section I just picked like right out of thin air. Like I said, I've never read this book, so it's going to be very interesting exploration. But I picked this section here in the middle because I was looking for a specific figurative language for a lesson. And I stumbled upon this passage. And I just loved it a lot. And the cool thing is it has a huge section of kind of director's dialogue, if you will, that parentheses I was just talking about earlier, directive for all the actors. So I'm going to read that as well. So I'm actually going to start with that and then read, it's actually Anne talking. She has this long, she takes up half a page. And she also ends scene 1 of this particular act. I'm not sure what act it is. Let's see if I can find out real quick. Ooh, curtain. I see it. The curtain goes up and we turn the page if we can. Act 2. Okay, so this is Act 2, Scene 1. The end, for those of you who are curious. Okay, parentheses. This is Peter, I'm assuming, a character in the story. He goes out. Anne stands in her doorway, looking after him. As Peter gets to his door, he stands for a minute, looking back at her. Then he goes into his room. Dussel rises as he comes in and quickly passes him, going out. He starts across for his room. Anne sees him coming, and pulls her door shut. Dussel's turned back towards Peter's room. Peter pulls his door shut. Dussel stands there, bewildered, forlorn. The scene slowly dims out. The curtain falls on the scene. Anne's voice comes over the darkness, faintly at first, and then with a growing strength. We've had bad news. The people from whom Miep got our rations books have been arrested. So we've had to cut down on our food. Our stomachs are so empty that they rumble and make strange noises, all in different keys. Mr. Van Dan's is deep and low, like a bass fiddle. Mine is high, whistling like a flute. As we all sit around waiting for supper, it's like an orchestra tuning up. It only needs Toscany to raise his baton, and we'd be off in the ride of the Valkyries. Monday, the 6th of March, 1944. Mr. Kraler is in the hospital. Seems he has ulcers. Pim says we are his ulcers. Miep has to run the business, and us too. The Americans landed on the southern tip of Italy. Father looks for a quick finish to the war. Blech. Mr. Dussel is waiting every day for the warehouse man to demand more money. Have I been skipping too much from one subject to another? I can't help it. I feel that spring is coming. I feel it in my whole body and soul. I feel utterly confused. I'm longing, so longing for everything. For friends, for someone to talk to, someone who understands, someone young who feels as I do.